If you're watching this video in 2020, it's probably because you're locked inside your house, following your government's efforts to stop the spread of a deadly virus. And if you're watching this video in 2021, hey there, how's it going? Hopefully by that point the virus has stopped spreading and that we're also free to go out and enjoy the world. Now, lockdowns have been some of the most strict and challenging things that most of us have had to go through. However, not everything is that bad. Thanks to the fact that a lot of people were inside their houses, the animal kingdom took over the streets of the cities and a lot of other places that are usually crowded by humans. It gives them a little extra breathing room in order to wander. On that note, today we're going to be looking at 10 wild animals caught on camera during lockdown. We'll explore different parts of the world and witness some of the most amazing sights that happened during lockdown. When you see my top pick for the day, you'll be glad to know that no humans were around when these animals came out. Let's check them out. Number 10. Wild boars in Israel. Some people find them cute, but some people are not so fond of them. And even though they're not really threatening, wild boars and humans prefer to stay at a distance from each other. However, things changed in the municipality of Haifa in Israel as the authorities began to notice there were wild boars roaming their community. Usually, wild boars would sneak into Haifa and search for food in the different restaurant dumpsters around town. But when the lockdown started, more wild boars began to show up, and since the restaurants were closed, the wild boars began to feast on people's trash cans. The amount of wild boars were so high that Haifa's authorities had to have a Zoom meeting to address the problem. They do love animals, but they didn't want them to disturb people's neighborhoods. But not all the people seemed to care. Many of them actually provided meals to the boars, which of course the government was not approving of. But what can you do when you love animals and they come to you? Of course you want to pet and feed them. Just make sure you don't give them anything that could compromise their health. That would be unfortunate. Number 9. Flamingos in Albania. The sight of a bird in the wild might not be a big deal for most of us, but when you look at this lake in Albania, you can see the amount of flamingos in the area is anything but ordinary. After all, some birds enjoy solitude, and just like most other animals, flamingos feel more comfortable when there are no humans around. Authorities reported that there were at least 3,000 flamingos on different lagoons on the country's western coastline. Thousands of them got together at Narta Lagoon, a popular spot that flamingos use for mating after flying all the way from the African continent and the southern part of the Mediterranean. With no tourists in sight, flamingos have enjoyed the setting without anyone distracting them. According to an environmental expert, the lockdown has made this the time for love, and it's really showing. Number 8. Pigeons in Germany. Birds are not only in remote and exotic places, a lot of them are very near to us. If you live in a city, you probably know a park or two where people gather to feed pigeons. So what happens when there are no humans outside to feed them? Well, that's what a German animal rights group is trying to figure out. There are photos of different cities that show pigeons in a lot of random places. Some of them are even inside shopping centers and other buildings where they normally would not stay for too long. The animal rights group is trying to raise awareness since the lack of human activities means there are no leftovers or nice people to share food with these birds. What's even worse is that the lockdown happened right in the middle of breeding season, which means that a lot of young birds could die if their parents don't find any food for them. So, if you are in Germany or any other city around the world, don't hold back on your leftovers and share them with the birds. Number 7. Sea cows in Thailand. Have you ever seen a sea cow? Or have you ever heard about them before? You probably haven't, and if you have, then you're very lucky. The sea cows, also known as dugongs, are a vulnerable species. They usually become victims to fishing nets and water pollution. However, thanks to the lockdown, these creatures have been able to explore the ocean without the dangers of being caught or dying due to pollution. The Hat Chiao Mai National Park in Thailand caught a herd of 30 sea cows on video, and they posted it on social media. They claim that large swarms of fish and other species indicate that there's been a recent revival of wildlife since the lockdown began. The park stopped having human visitors, but they are probably enjoying having all that space for animals to roam free and make themselves at home. Number 6. Kashmiri goats in Wales. These peculiar goats usually make their way into La Dunda whenever there's bad weather. However, this time they've taken over the center of the city and started nibbling on flowers and all sorts of edible things that they found on people's gardens. They're probably very confused, trying to figure out what's going on in this usually busy seaport town. Some of the goats even had babies during the lockdown, and they brought them along to the city. The authorities claim that they're proud of being a home to these animals, and they're also thankful for the fact that the goats pretty much brought free entertainment to the bored people who had to watch them from their windows. Number 5. Cougars in Chile. Well, that one's terrifying. Where in the world can you spot big cats like the cougars? There are a few places that come to mind. National parks, remote mountains, the zoo, and apparently the streets of the city of Santiago. That's right, apparently many cougars have started to come out and visit the streets of the Chilean capital city. When cities began to develop, the populations of cougars in the wild became more distant from each other. These animals like to stay away from noise, but the silence and the lack of movement in the city made it possible for the cougars to come into town and search for food. Also, the Chilean authorities say that there is a severe drought in the foothills around Santiago, which forces the animals to travel far to satisfy their needs. When they caught one of these cougars, they took him to the zoo to make sure that it was not harmed, and then it was released back into the wild. One can hope that these animals find good sources of food, and we can also hope that humans stay safe inside, away from these wild beasts. Number 4. CIVET in India. CIVET, this animal. This lockdown has shown us that India is home to a lot of wild animals that have been hiding for way too long. There's a long list of amazing sights that were recorded during their lockdown. One of the more impressive ones is one of this small Indian civet, who was able to pass over the zebra walk without having to worry of the usual traffic that fills the streets of Kozhikode. When the authorities saw the video, they concluded that the small animal probably traveled all the way from a forest that is pretty far from the city. If a couple of weeks of lockdown allowed this animal to travel this far, imagine what would happen after a few months. I'm sure we would be seeing tons of them in different parts of the world. Number 3. Jaguars in Guatemala. That's also pretty terrifying. Jaguars were a very important animal for the Mayan civilization. In fact, Mayans saw jaguars as symbols of dark and light, and as rulers of the underworld. However, as time passed, spotting jaguars and the other animals in the ancient Mayan towns was not so common anymore. But all of this changed after Guatemala began its lockdown in mid-March. The authorities at the Tikal National Park, which you've probably seen in movies like Star Wars, claim that jaguars and lots of other animals have started to come out to the park. Usually, Tikal is crowded with tourists who want to learn more about the civilization, but since no one is allowed to visit at the moment, the jaguars are ruling over this place. Other animals in the park include deer, foxes, crocodiles, and tapirs. It sounds like the animal kingdom is having a party over there. Now it's time for the day's best pick. When the lockdown started, there was a viral post going around, claiming that Russia's President Vladimir Putin had sent 800 lions to roam the city in order to keep people inside their homes. The post came with the photo that I'm showing to you today. However, this photo has nothing to do with President Putin, coronavirus, or anything related to the 2020 lockdown. This photo is from 2016 and is linked to a film production that took place in Johannesburg, South Africa. A production company borrowed the lion from a nearby park and allowed it to roam in the city. They made sure to keep everything under control, but I'm sure a lot of people got scared when they saw this. However, I do have a story about lions that came out during the lockdown. That being number 2. Lions in South Africa. When we think of lions in the wild, we immediately think of the African continent, am I right? That or Lion King. We picture them roaming in the wild, chasing after the prey, or just taking a nap under a tree, or something like that. What never crossed our minds, though, was the image of lions lying on a road. Usually these lions take naps in the bushes, trying to avoid places where humans normally hang out. But now that there are no humans around, the lions have made good use of their freedom, and this photo taken at Kruger National Park is a great example of that. These guys just look so relaxed and well rested. This photo makes me want to take a nap, but probably not in a spot that close to those wild beasts, or maybe some cars, always fun. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it really works. Number 1. Rhino in Nepal. There were all sorts of animals that came out during the lockdown. Some were big, some were small, and I'm sure a lot of them were as scared of us just like we are usually scared of them. However, the one that impressed me the most is this rhino that was strolling around the streets in Nepal. I mean, there's a national park surrounding it, but when you look at the footage, you can see clearly that the big animal was walking freely in the middle of a neighborhood that would likely be busy on a regular day. Good thing people there had their phones ready to record this. It would honestly be kinda hard for anyone to believe that this happened if there was not a video to prove it. This lockdown has definitely been a crazy time for us all. Regardless of what part of the world you're from, I'm sure you experienced this moment in history in ways that you never imagined. All I hope is that you're safe and healthy, far away from viruses and from wild animals that you never thought you would encounter. Were there any wild animals that came out during lockdown in your country? What animals would those be? Let us know in the comments section down below. And also, if you ever see something odd, make sure you record it with your phone or some sort of camera. Who knows, maybe your findings will be featured on my list one day. That's our video for today, folks, and I will see you all next time. Later, everybody.